Long before your mouth forms a sentence, your eyes have already made an introduction. Not a perfect one, not a final one, but an introduction all the same. A room can feel it. A stranger can feel it. Even a child can feel it. There are people who say very little, yet something about them seems steady, trustworthy, alive. And there are others who speak beautifully, but their eyes arrive a few seconds too late, as if the rest of them is still hiding somewhere behind a locked door. What is it people see? That is the uncomfortable part. They often see what you have been trying not to see in yourself. Most people think the eyes reveal emotion. That is true, but only in the most obvious sense. Fear, joy, anger, sadness, anyone knows that much, but the eyes reveal something deeper than a passing feeling. They reveal your relationship with yourself. They reveal where your attention lives. They reveal whether you are bracing, performing, chasing approval, withholding trust, or finally at peace in your own skin. And once you understand that, a small but important shift begins. You stop obsessing over how to look confident. You become more interested in what your eyes are trying to confess on your behalf. Because the real work was never cosmetic, it was internal. The first thing your eyes reveal is whether you are present or merely appearing. You have met this kind of person before. They nod at the right moments. They answer quickly enough. On paper they are there, but their eyes keep slipping away, not always physically, sometimes just in spirit. It feels as though they are half with you and half in another room entirely, replaying a conversation, worrying about how they sound, rehearsing what to say next. People notice this faster than you think. Presence has a texture, so does absence. A person who is truly present does not need dramatic eye contact. In fact, they are often quieter about it. Their gaze settles. It listens. It does not keep darting around the room like it expects danger to enter through the windows. There is a softness to their attention, but also weight. You feel very simply that they are here. And being here is rarer than people admit. Many of us learn to survive by splitting ourselves into fragments. One part doing the task, one part scanning for judgment, one part trying to predict what comes next, one part managing the image. By adulthood, this fragmentation can look normal, efficient even, but the eyes tell the truth. They show when the mind is not sitting in the same chair as the body. You can see it in ordinary places. The man ordering coffee while checking his phone, barely hearing the cashier. The young woman at dinner smiling on cue while her eyes stay tense and far away. The father at the playground looking up every 30 seconds, physically present, mentally chained to a problem from the office. These are not bad people. They are tired people, overextended people, people whose inner world has become louder than the moment in front of them. But here is the part most people miss. When your eyes stop landing in the present, you do not only lose connection with others, you lose evidence of your own life. Days blur, conversations flatten. Beautiful things pass by unregistered. It becomes strangely easy to feel empty when you have barely been where you were. The second thing your eyes reveal is whether you are seeking approval. This one is subtle, and once you notice it, you will never quite unsee it. Approval-seeking eyes do not simply look, they check. They check faces for signs, they check tone for reassurance. They check the room after saying something, as if waiting for a small verdict. Was that good? Was I interesting? Did I say too much? Do you still like me? There is a kind of hunger in that gaze, not greed, hunger, and it can live inside very polite, very capable people. Sometimes it appears as overeagerness, the eyes widening a little too fast, smiling a little too hard, trying to stay agreeable, readable, safe. Sometimes it takes the opposite form, a guarded, over-controlled gaze that is still begging for acceptance, only more quietly. A person becomes so careful not to embarrass themselves that every glance starts asking permission to exist. You can feel the strain of it because it pulls the whole person outward. Their center is no longer inside them, it is floating in the reactions of others. This usually begins early. A child learns that being liked is safer than being real. A teenager learns that belonging can depend on saying the correct thing, wearing the correct mask, laughing at the correct moment. Later, the habit becomes elegant, mature even, but beneath it is the same old question, am I still acceptable to you? And the eyes carry that question before the lips do. There is no cruelty in seeing this. In fact, there can be compassion. Many decent people spend years living like this without realizing how exhausting it is. They think they need more charisma, better lines, stronger posture, but the real relief begins when they stop building themselves from the outside in. A steady gaze does not demand applause, it does not apologize for existing, it does not chase the room for permission. That kind of steadiness is not arrogance, it is rest. The third thing your eyes reveal is how much fear you are carrying. Fear does not always look dramatic, it is rarely the cinematic version. Most fear is tidy, functional, it wears clean clothes and shows up on time. But the eyes know. Fearful eyes often have a watchman quality. They are over-alert. They scan for threat, criticism, embarrassment, conflict. They anticipate interruption. They brace before anything has happened. Even in silence, they seem busy defending a border that nobody is currently crossing. You will see it in people who always look slightly startled when addressed, in those who laugh too quickly after speaking as if smoothing over their own presence, in those whose gaze hardens before a simple disagreement because somewhere deep down, disagreement still feels like danger. This is not weakness, it is memory living in the nervous system. A person may be sitting in a perfectly ordinary meeting, but some ancient part of them is not in that meeting at all. It is back in a childhood kitchen where voices rose without warning, or in a classroom where one wrong answer meant public humiliation, or in a relationship where honesty became expensive. The body moves on. The eyes sometimes are slower. That is why some people seem tired even when they slept. They are using energy to guard against ghosts that no one else in the room can see. And yet, fear has a strange vanity to it. It convinces you that hypervigilance is protection. Stay on edge, it says, and you will stay safe. But constant scanning does not create safety. It erodes peace. It robs ordinary moments. It teaches the eyes to look at life as a courtroom instead of a place. So when you notice fear in your own gaze, do not rush to hide it. Ask it what promise it thinks it is keeping. Fear usually believes it is helping. That is why it is so persistent. The fourth thing your eyes reveal is whether you respect yourself. Now that is a phrase people often misuse. Self-respect has been flattened into attitude, image, dominance, the ability to look unimpressed in photographs. Nonsense. Real self-respect is quieter than that. It does not need to sneer. It does not need to tower. Often it barely announces itself at all. You see it in the eyes of someone who does not over-explain their boundaries, someone who can be kind without becoming porous, someone who does not shrink the moment another personality enters the room. Their gaze is not hard, it is anchored. Anchored is the word. A person with self-respect looks at the world as someone who belongs in it, not above it, not beneath it. In it, there is a difference. Their eyes do not constantly ask whether they are too much or not enough. They may still feel doubt, of course. They are human, but the doubt does not own the house. Contrast that with the gaze of someone who has made a habit of abandoning themselves. You will often find hesitation there, a quick retreat, a reflex to soften their own opinion before it causes inconvenience. They may smile while their eyes quietly fold inward, already preparing to surrender ground they had every right to stand on. This happens in small scenes. A person says they are tired, then immediately laughs it off. A man agrees to a favor his face clearly does not want to give. A woman begins a sentence with conviction, then sees disapproval flicker across someone's expression and her eyes dim before the sentence is finished. It is painful to watch because most of the time, they are betraying themselves so automatically they barely notice it. Self-respect changes the gaze because it changes the contract you have with yourself. You stop treating your own needs like embarrassing interruptions. You stop acting as though your inner voice must win a public vote before it deserves to be heard. And when that happens, the eyes become calmer, cleaner, less apologetic. The fifth thing your eyes reveal is whether you are telling the truth to yourself. Notice I did not say whether you are lying to others. That is a cheap little parlor game. People love pretending they can spot deception in a twitch or a blink. Human beings are far messier than that. What interests me far more is self-deception. There is a particular look people get when they are living one life and inwardly admitting another. They say they are fine, but their eyes seem delayed, as if the statement arrived before belief did. They insist they do not care, yet their gaze keeps returning to the same wound. They claim to have moved on, but their attention circles the loss like a moth that still cannot accept the window is shut. We all do this more than once. A man tells himself he hates his job because he is ambitious, when really he is afraid he has become invisible to himself. A woman tells herself she is being patient in love when she is actually tolerating crumbs because loneliness scares her. Someone says they are too busy to change, when what they mean is change would force them to grieve the years already spent asleep. The eyes know when a story has stopped fitting. This is why some people look so drained after maintaining a false life for too long. It is not only the effort of performance. It is the friction between the truth inside and the script outside. That friction shows up in the gaze as dullness, irritation, distance, a kind of quiet resignation. But there is another look, and it is unmistakable. It appears when a person finally stops arguing with what they know, not when the problem is solved. Often it is still a mess, but they have stopped lying about the mess. Their eyes become sadder for a moment perhaps, but also clearer. Honest pain has more dignity than artificial peace. There is relief in no longer having to convince yourself. And that relief can be seen. The sixth thing your eyes reveal is the quality of your inner life. This may be the deepest one because it goes beyond mood and beyond circumstance. It speaks to what you repeatedly feed your mind. A person who spends years filling themselves with resentment begins to look at the world through a narrowed opening. Everything seems slightly contaminated. Every success becomes suspicious. Every kindness looks strategic. Their eyes grow sharp in the wrong way, not perceptive but corrosive. They are always noticing, rarely seeing. A person who lives in constant comparison develops another sort of gaze, restless, measuring, never at ease. They look at others and immediately calculate distance. Better than me, worse than me, ahead of me, behind me. Even beauty becomes competition. Even peace becomes something to envy. Then there are those rare souls whose eyes seem to have retained room for wonder, room for sorrow, room for nuance. They have not escaped hardship. Usually they have known a great deal of it, but they have not let pain make them small. Their eyes carry thoughtfulness instead of bitterness, curiosity instead of contempt. That difference is not accidental. It is built from private habits. What do you read when nobody is watching? What thoughts do you rehearse on your walks? What grudges do you polish? What conversations do you replay until they poison the air? What beauty do you still allow to enter? A line from an old book, rain on a window, a dog waiting by a shop door, the way an elderly couple still reaches for each other crossing the street. The eyes become like a front window for the inner house. If the house is full of smoke, the glass shows it. If the house is tended, the glass shows that too. People are forever trying to improve the expression while neglecting the atmosphere behind it. It rarely works for long. And now we arrive at the part that matters most. If the eyes reveal so much, what are you supposed to do with that knowledge? Become self-conscious every time you look at someone. Practice a better gaze in the mirror. Learn to hold eye contact for exactly the right number of seconds, like some miserable little sales manual. No, that route leads nowhere good. Performance can mimic confidence for a minute. It cannot produce peace. The eyes change when the inner posture changes. If you want your gaze to feel more grounded, learn to arrive in your own moments again. Put the phone down when someone is speaking. Let silence happen without rushing to decorate it. Notice when your mind has run ahead to defense and gently bring it back to the chair, the table, the voice in front of you. If your eyes are always checking for approval, begin the slower work of letting yourself exist without constant external confirmation. Say one honest thing each day without editing it into harmlessness. Wear what you actually like once in a while. Disappoint someone in a small, respectful way and survive the fact that you were not universally pleasing for 5 whole minutes. It is good medicine. If fear is living in your gaze, treat yourself with a little dignity. Do not mock your nervous system for learning the wrong lesson too well. Safety is not built by force. It is built by repetition. A few honest conversations, a few boundaries kept, a few moments where you remain present after the old alarm goes off and discover that nothing terrible happened. If self-respect is weak, stop bargaining away your own clarity. Speak a touch more plainly. Stop smiling over things that wound you. Rest when you are tired instead of pretending fatigue is a moral failure. You teach yourself how much you matter by the way you answer your own needs. If you are lying to yourself, start smaller than a grand confession. Just tell the truth in one room of your life. Admit you are lonely. Admit you are angry. Admit you want more. Admit you no longer want what you keep pretending to want. Truth has a way of cleaning the windows. And if your inner life has grown cramped and bitter, then feed it differently. Better books, better conversations, better solitude, more attention to beauty, less worship of noise. A human being becomes in part what they repeatedly behold. Psychologists have long observed that the mind and body do not live separate lives. Attention shapes emotion. Emotion shapes posture. Repeated thought shapes expression. The face over time becomes less of a mask and more of a record. Not a perfect record, no, but an honest one in flashes, especially around the eyes where effort tends to lose its grip for a second. That is why your eyes can betray you, yes, but they can also guide you home. When something in your gaze looks tired, absent, hungry, frightened, do not treat it as a flaw to hide. Treat it as information, a message from the deeper rooms. The eyes are often the first to admit what the mouth is still trying to manage. There is a strange comfort in that. You do not have to become someone else. You do not need a more impressive personality. You do not need to win every room. Very often, you need less performance, less internal noise, less fleeing from yourself. What people sense in your eyes is not how polished you are. It is how divided you are or how whole. And wholeness is not glamour, it is agreement. The quiet agreement between what you feel, what you know, what you value, and how you live. When that agreement grows, the eyes soften. They steady. They stop begging and scanning and apologizing. They begin to look like they belong to someone who has sat with life long enough to stop flinching at every shadow. That kind of gaze is memorable. Not because it dominates, because it tells the truth. So the next time you catch your own reflection for half a second in a dark window, do not ask the shallow question, do I look confident? Do I look attractive? Do I look in control? Ask the better one, what have my eyes been trying to say for me? Tell me honestly, have you ever looked at someone and felt their whole state of mind before they said a single word?